Alright guys, this is one of my projects here. This is it's actually in my house. This is in one of my spare bedrooms I store all my parts in. This is a 1983 Kawasaki GPZ 305 with belt drive. It's not chain, it's a belt. So my dad bought me one of these when I was 15 years old to ride back and forth to school. This was probably around 1987. We bought the bike used, but it was only like 4 years old when we bought it. But I love that bike. It was in very, very nice shape. Anyway, I rode it for about a year. Something happened to it, I think. I don't remember, and then I ended up selling it. I got a car, so I didn't need the motorcycle anymore, and I sold it. I wish I'd have kept it, but I didn't. But anyway, I tried to track down my original about 10 years ago. I got in the mood to get another one and fix it up to have my old bike back, and I couldn't find it. Now, I've got a friend of mine, Terry, that bought all the parts. I had a parts bike as well, and anyway, he ended up buying both bikes from me. And the last time I talked to him, he thinks that he's got at least the engine from one of those bikes out at his dad's old place out in the woods. Now, of course, the engine's not going to be any good, but I thought it'd make a cool video to go out and drag that engine out. He said I could have it if I wanted it. But it would be nice to try to use maybe the side cover or something off of it on the bike, so I'll have part of my youth bikes, back in service, was kind of the idea. But I couldn't find my original. I tried tracking it down. I talked to the last two people that I knew, and he knew that owned it, but we come up with nothing. But I put a want ad on Craigslist about 10 years ago, and I had a guy deliver me one from Arkansas. Really cool guy. The bike was all together. It was complete for 300 bucks. It ran and it rode and everything. It just didn't run very good. And I ended up spending about the next week on it, getting the carburetors fixed and tuning it up and everything. I got it running pretty good. And then I bought a whole bunch of brand new parts for this bike. I bought every single thing for this bike except a battery. I got brand new tires. I got all new bearings for all the wheels, the headset, everything. All new engine gaskets. I mean, I bought a ton of stuff. I had all the decals reproduced. I bought the paint. I bought the silver. I bought the blue. So I was going to base coat, clear coat it, and do all these, and then clear coat everything, stripes, decals, and all, and then sand it and polish it. My mom reupholstered my seat about 10 years ago for me, and it looks brand new. But anyway, I got tons of brand new parts and totes. There's 3 totes to this bike, and I have 2 parts bikes, so I have everything to make this car, or this bike, super, super nice. And the idea was to make it look just like it rolled off the assembly line, with just as perfect as I can get it, but with a few little custom subtle touches done to it. So I've threatened for 10 years since I tore the bike apart to paint a lot of the parts for the bike, and then I could, in the winter time, I could, build it. And here I just never have done it. I've always put the cars in front of it, so it has never had anything done to it. Let's see, the frame, I ended up, I cleaned a bunch of welding slag off of it from the factory on through here, and I think it just needs Scotch-Brighted and then primered, and then sand the primer and paint it. So what I thought I would go ahead and do to kind of get the ball rolling on it is I've got to paint the sway bars, the front and rear sway bars for my two-door hardtop 55, and I'm going to paint them with base coat, clear coat black that I have. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is paint the frame base coat, clear coat black, and the sway bars at the same time. So when I go out there and start prepping the sway bars to get them primered, I'm going to go ahead and Scotch-Brite this down and just primer it all together and then paint it all together. And that'll be one thing done. So that's kind of where I'm at. Anyway, just another one of them projects that I'm sure a lot of you guys have that they probably haven't seen the light of day in years, you know what I mean? And this one, 10 years ago, I tore it apart. Maybe 11 years ago, I don't even know. But it kind of sucks because I bought everything for this bike brand new, and it's just brand new stuff just sitting in boxes and totes and stuff. So it's kind of time to put it back together. It's not like it'd be a difficult restoration project. There's nothing to these old little bikes like this. It's just a little twin-cylinder 305cc engine. It's not like it's a race bike or anything. It's a part of my youth that I want back is all it is. But it'll also allow me, if I got to go down and get a part at O'Reilly's, you know, little small parts or something, you know, run to the grocery store for a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk, I can throw on the backpack and take the bike instead of taking my truck. So I may go ahead and spend a little time and try to paint a little bit more on this thing. Who knows? But that's just one of the projects. So I got the GPZ frame here, so I'm getting it, basically sanding it all down by hand with 150 grit paper, just so I can get it ready for primer with the sway bars. Now this frame, this particular motorcycle, all the engine's open and everything. It doesn't have a side cover, but it's way up here, so all this part of the frame down here is visible. There was all kinds of weld spatter all around this area right here. So I went in with different roll-lock discs, Scotch-It discs and stuff, and I got it all smoothed off and cleaned up a little bit. So after it's, you know, it's getting base coat, clear coat black, so it's going to be super shiny, and I didn't want a bunch of little big specks all stuck in the paint. So anyway, I cleaned up both sides, so that's all cleaned up. The 150 grit is working pretty nice. It's feathering off the original paint pretty easy because there's all kinds of little chips and scratches and nicks and stuff in it, and the rust and stuff. So anyway, I'll get it all scuffed down, and then at that point it'll be ready to put primer on. But I'll finish up the frame here in a few minutes, and then I'll start on the sway bars and get those all sanded down and get those ready, and that way I can prime everything at once. Pretty messy job. As you can see, the black stuff goes everywhere. Alright guys, so today is Friday, June 30th, 2023. So I've got my sway bars set up out here, and I've sanded on them a little bit. Actually the rear one, trying to get the hammer tone off. I sanded on this a couple days ago, a little bit more yesterday. This little sander I'm using, it gets really hot, and I'm afraid I'm going to burn it up if I just continue using it. It was 103 I think yesterday, or 101 or something. Today is even hotter. So, you know, it doesn't take long for the stuff to get hot. Also, the GoPro is getting hot and overheating, so when I turn the record button off on the GoPro, I have to take the GoPro in the house, so it's in there in the air conditioning. But I want to get these sanded today, and I want to get these engine side covers that I've got here in this basket. I want to get those sanded. I've got the frame sanded. There's a few little areas that I need to use my little spot blaster on because it's got some surface rust. Just a few little areas. Anyway, I'm going to use my little blaster there and blast it outside. Just it's not going to take 5 minutes to wheel it out there and blast that stuff. But anyway, I want to primer all that, the motorcycle frame and the engine side covers and the sway bars today. And then I think I'm going to wait until possibly Sunday to sand all these parts down and then paint them all together. And then at that point I'll at least have a little bit of progress on this little motorcycle. So I haven't decided yet what to do. I think it's a good idea to get the motorcycle pretty much done, and then that way I'll have a little parts runner. So you know, I've got a pretty large backpack, and it'd be nice to jump on a motorcycle, go to the parts store, Tractor Supply or whatever, to get parts, because sometimes I go for cutoff wheels or bolts, you know, that type of stuff, or even small car parts. So instead of jumping in the truck and that thing gets terrible fuel mileage and gas with as expensive as it is, it'd be nice to have that little motorcycle to run the little small errands on. And it's also another 10-year project that I would like to get out of the way and done. It takes up a lot of room in my shed. There's, I think, 4 large totes and 1 cardboard box of stuff in there, so it would be nice to get the bike put together. There's not a lot there. It's a small motorcycle, so I haven't decided yet if I'm going to go full bore and just try to go for it and try to get it all done, or just go ahead and paint a few parts and leave it be until this winter and then work on it this winter inside my house. Haven't decided yet. Well, I kept trying to sand this hammer tone finish on this sway bar with I was using an electric DA sander with 80 grit, and it's just it's taking a lot of paper and it's just not getting a lot done. I'm trying to get it all down to smooth it out so I can get primer on it, so I can then go back and block it out and make it really slick. But man, I decided that I was just going to go ahead and go to an 80 grit disc on my angle grinder, and that is really cutting it down quick. I mean, you can see the dust it's throwing out, but this sway bar, the metal if you look at that, you can see how rough it is. So it's taking a lot of work. It is going to take a whole lot of work. But anyway, hopefully this one will get done here in the next, I don't know, half hour or so. And then I'm going to work on the front sway bar, which it's just a smooth finish, like a semi-gloss black. It's not nothing, it's not textured or anything. So this will sand pretty easy. And yeah, it won't take too long. I actually bought this brand new and had it on a 56 Bel Air that I had. I got to tell you guys, if you're building a Tri-5 Chevy and you're just doing a daily driver, you know, this I think is the biggest bang for the buck on a Tri-5 Chevy, the front sway bar. This is not a giant one, this is just a small one. This is a CPP unit. I want to say that was like 110 bucks or something. And you can find them on eBay with free shipping, and they're around like 120, I think. I bought one for my wife's four-door. It's in the shed. But anyway, this one I bought new and put it on my 56, and it was a night and day difference on bolting that sway bar on. So I highly recommend these for something you're going to drive a lot, because the cars have a lot of body roll. And you put this little bolt-on sway bar on there. You don't have to weld anything. It's a complete bolt-on kit. You do have to drill some holes, but it's nothing big. But anyway, I drove the 56 every day. It was my daily driver, and I bolted that sway bar on over the weekend, and then I headed for work Monday, and then on the way back, and it was, I would put one on every one I build after that. That's pretty awesome. For the price, you know what I mean, for bang for the buck. I think that's a great little unit. So, anyway, the 55 hardtop is getting a front and rear sway bar, but the four-door is just getting a front, because this car is just going to be a basic driver quality car. This one I kind of wanted to do some, maybe some curves on the road. I do know of an area that has a lot of hills and curvy roads up around Jay, Oklahoma, Spavinaw, Oklahoma, Salina, Oklahoma. So I wanted to take off for a drive and video that going around some of them corners. Not totally crazy, but you know, just enjoy the ride and go around it a little bit firm, I guess. So, man, I got a lot of work to do. Oh man, it's 100 degrees out here. I mean, it literally is. 100 degrees is what it says, so. Anyway, I am hydrating. I'm drinking lots of water and Gatorade. Right now I'm having a little, it's called Drip Drop. It's a little powder package that you pour into a bottle of water and shake it up. It's pretty good. Pretty good stuff. Fruit punch, I think, is the flavor of it. So, I wanted to primer this stuff today, and I think it's around 3:20 or so p.m. So I do have time to hang this stuff and get it primered, but it is so hot, I just really don't want to. I think I'm going to wait till in the morning and primer all this stuff. So this is the front and rear sway bars for the 55 hardtop. The rear sway bar was so rough, I ended up pretty much having to decast it. Even though it's, you know, it's just steel, I had to go in and use a 36 grit blaze disc on an angle grinder, go in and pretty much smooth all it out. It really rough. But anyway, I'm going to primer these. This one's going to clean up pretty good. It has a couple little spots from where it was made, but I think the primer will, I'll hit those little spots a couple of times, and then I'll primer the whole thing, so when I go back and block it, it'll smooth out. But anyway, the rear sway bar should sand out really, really slick and smooth, because these are going to be high gloss, base coat, clear coat, so they should look really nice. Now, if you can see that, I had actually flattened a pad off of this rear sway bar, and that is a dash script for a 55, 56 Chevy 150 or 210 series. And I drilled the holes in it, and it goes on there. So I'll put just a little dab of silicone down in each one of those after it's painted and stick that emblem in there. So give it a little bit of, this is right underneath the rear end cover, so if anybody bends down and looks under the car, you will see that hanging down under there, and it'll say Chevrolet on it. I think it's kind of neat. I've never seen that done before. I got the motorcycle frame. It is done. It's ready to be wiped down and primered. So I ended up going in and had to blast just a few little areas that had a little bit of surface rust. There's no scaly anything. It's really, really in nice shape. So that thing's all from front to back and underneath and everything. It's all sanded. I even removed some of the weld spatter on the frame. That way when the high gloss, base coat, clear coat is on, it doesn't highlight all the weld spatter and look like crap. I got all the engine side covers completely smoothed off and cleaned up. So these are all sanded down and ready. So those are going to get primered. That's going to get primered, and the sway bars are going to get primered tomorrow. And then, I don't know, maybe Monday I will try to paint them, because I'll have to sand everything and then paint it. So that'll take a little time to sand it. So I'm pretty excited. It's a little bit of progress, actually. All right, guys. So today is Sunday, July 2nd, 2023. So a couple of days away from Independence Day. So I got a table here. I've got a trash bag put on it, some tape on the corners to keep it from flipping up in the wind, for the most part. But anyway, I've got some of these are the motorcycle pieces that are going to be base coat, clear coat black, but they're going to get primered first. So I've got them laid out on the table. Now these three pieces here, I'm getting ready to blast with my blaster. And then this piece, I'm probably going to have to sand it a little bit and tune it, because it has kind of rough edges from the factory and stuff. So I'm going to smooth it out a little bit with some 150 grit paper just to smooth it. But then all of this stuff will get primered. And then in a couple of days after it all gets sanded, I will go back and paint it base coat, clear coat black. So this particular bike, the body panels are red with silver and blue stripes. And the frame is black, the engine's black, the carburetors are black, the airbox is black, the wheels are red as well. But the bike doesn't have any chrome on it. It's all black. So what I'm going to do, in my fashion of detailing with different shades of the same color, which would be black, I don't want it to look like I went in there and just painted the whole engine together as one piece. So these side covers and everything are going to be high gloss black. Now they actually did that from the factory. The engine block and the head was like a semi-gloss black. The rest of this stuff was high gloss black, but I'm kind of following what they did. But what they did on the carburetors, it's twin carburetors and they're bolted together. All they did was paint them semi-gloss black, the whole thing, the tops, the bowls, the main body, everything. So I am going to do all these, the float bowls and the slide covers on the top of the carbs. These are going to be high gloss base coat, clear coat black as well. But I'm going to do the center main body semi-gloss black on the carburetor. So it'll give it a little bit of breakup and give it a little bit of detail. I'm changing all the hardware out to socket cap Allens instead of the old Phillips screws. The Phillips screws, they tend to, they strip out. They're also black color and some of them's kind of rusty looking. So I'm not going to worry about messing with trying to restore them. I'm just going to put a stainless steel socket cap Allen in there, which I don't know if the factory did it. I don't know if they put anti-seize on any of them bolts, because some of them were so tight I had to use a impact driver to get some of them screws out. And of course, by the time you're done, the Phillips head part of the screw is kind of screwed up a little bit. So I'm going to change these all out to socket cap Allens. This is the gas cap, and it is high gloss black, but as I stated, it's a little rough around the edges. Like when you lift it up, you can see like a rough edge and stuff just from the factory. I'm just going to smooth it up. I've got the frame here. Everything's prepped and ready. All it needs is blown off, wiped down, and shot with primer. I've got both sway bars for the hard top ready. Those need wiped down and shot. So all the stuff's getting primered today. And it's going to be pretty much at least half the day just doing that. But it's got to be done. And the cool part about it is maybe this winter I can, on the really, really cold days, I can actually start putting some of the bike together inside my house in my spare bedroom. So it's pretty cool. But there's a lot more work to do than just that. The paint job on the motorcycle itself is going to be very intricate. It's probably going to take a few days to do the paint job on the bike, because it's red with silver and blue stripes. Now I had all the decals and everything, even the smallest of decals, like the label that goes on the front brake master cylinder, the lid that says use only .3 and it says Kawasaki on it and all that. I had all that stuff reproduced, so this bike should look showroom fresh. And then, anyway, the stripes on the bike I am going to paint them all on, everything in base. Then I'm going to put all the stickers, decals, all that stuff on, and then I'm going to bury it in clear. Then I'm going to go back and sand and buff all the body panels to where it looks like absolute perfect paint job. So it'll be intricate, but I want the bike to be pretty showy, you know what I mean? So it's still going to look stock. It's just going to be a little bit resto modded. I did change the blue out on the stripe. They're little thin stripes. The blue is more of a navy blue from the factory, and I don't like that on that red. So I've got a, I can't remember what the color's called. It's like a, it's almost like the GM Bahama blue metallic they had in the 90s. Real pretty blue, but it's all base coat. So it's a little bit going to be intricate, and I'm not sure when I'm going to do the body paint on the motorcycle parts, but I'd at least like to get the frame and the engine and all that stuff painted, and then get all the wiring harness on and start bolting on all the little pieces, because the body panels can come last, you know what I mean? So I'm going to get to it. Alright, so these are the carburetor bowls. I blasted them. So it has two casting lines up the side of it right there. And then all along this flange right here is really rough casting lines. Really rough. Now these don't go into a pocket on the carburetor. These actually made it flat to the bottom of it and have an O-ring that goes all the way around that, a formed O-ring. So you can see the sides of this. Now these are going to be high gloss black, base clear. So I want these, you know, pretty slick. So what I did was I just took some sanding block with some sandpaper, and I used a Rolock with 80 on it, and pretty much just worked that edge over a little bit. So when I get done primering, this is actually a low line in here, it's left. I've got all the high off, so when I primer these will block out real nice. But anyway, that edge looks so much cleaner than that. So it took about 15 minutes to do it, but you know, I have about 30 minutes invested in both. But this motorcycle, the engine is fully exposed. There's no cowling covering it, so I want all that stuff pretty slick. Okay, well, I got everything elevated off the table a little bit, so that way nothing will get stuck to the trash bag there. So it's about the only thing I can come up with for the frame, which is not going to work when I go to paint it. This is just primer, so it's not like the entire thing needs to be primered, you know, super heavy. So I'm going to have to probably build a jig out of metal. I've got a bunch of steel stuff here, so I'll build some kind of jig to hold the chassis or frame when I get ready to paint it, because that'll be the, you know, the final product. It needs to look good. So I got the sway bar hung up on this wire, the rear one. I got the front sway bar here. I just noticed a scratch there. Actually, those are high spots. Oh well. So I guess now I'm going to mix up my primer and go ahead and shoot this stuff. Primer is on. So I had to I painted all the top side of the frame with 2 coats, and then I let it set about, I don't know, 40 minutes probably. And then I ended up turning it over so I could finish off everything else. I tried to focus a lot of the primer, which I primered the whole thing, a couple of coats, but I ended up having some extra primer left over, so I went ahead and used it up. But anyway, I focused on all the lower tubes and all this area here that's all visible. A lot of this is all covered up by body panels, but anyway, that frame's gonna look really nice. Everything got feather edged on it, and it's all clean. All the welding slag got removed, so I'm really excited to see that in shiny paint. So this rear sway bar was really rough, and I ended up having to get pretty harsh with it with an angle grinder. So I did 3 full heavy wet coats on this thing, so I'm pretty sure that'll block out pretty slick. Front sway bar, it's not in too bad a shape. This is actually a pretty nice little piece. So it just got 2 coats, and then all the engine parts got 2 coats. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it'll end up, there'll be a lot of hand sanding, you know, to all this little fine stuff, and I'll use little bitty tiny sponge blocks and do everything to make sure it's nice and slick. But I mean, I can show you, if you kind of look across here, you can kind of see how wavy this area of this is with the light coming in on it. So when I go back and block that with a block, it'll end up being really, really slick. You know, if I'm going to paint something, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to half-ass it and just do it because it needs to get done. I don't do that. I did that when I was younger, and I don't do that anymore. The only person that I have to please is myself. So if I feel like I want to do some little something on this and sand casting lines and that type of stuff, I'm going to do it because I'm the one doing it. You know what I mean? That is going to be a really, really nice bike. I'm pretty excited. It's pretty much going to be a showable bike. I kind of thought if I had it done by Starboard's Car Show in February of 2024, I might take the bike and the car over there, because they do have bikes at Starboard's. They have a section where you put your bike at, so I may do both if I get it done anyway. That one's top priority, but this one not so much. But so that sway bar should block out and look really, really nice, especially when that base coat, clear coat gets on there, and if it lays down and flows out good. And then I put that chrome Chevrolet script on this. That's gonna be a nice little spot of detail. I'm pretty excited, man. I like this little detail stuff, you know, going in and making something better than what it was, over restoring it, basically. That's what I like to do. But well, I'm gonna clean up the paint gun.